Hey AP PreCal, it's Miss Kosh. We are going to solve trig inequalities without a calculator. So this is a continuation of the equations notes, but now we're jumping into inequalities. And I mentioned in the first video that I have never taught trig inequalities before. I mean, it makes sense, but I don't think I've ever had to teach it. Okay, so I didn't work these problems out beforehand, so we're just going to jump in and see what happens. So I know this is the same problem that we saw before. Where did that go? Here it is. Okay, this was the same 2x, 2 sine x minus 1 equals 0, and so we had pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. And so now all we're doing is we want to know when is this less than 0. So what we might do, the nice thing is they give us a world to live in. One way, I've never taught this before, so I'm trying to get creative. One thing that we could do is that we could do a sine diagram where we're starting at 0 and we have 2 pi, and we have to live inside that world because they restricted us to that. And then we know that our answers were, well, it would be equal to 0 at pi over 6, and it would be equal to 0 at 5 pi over 6. So I'm thinking sine chart. I'm going to try this and see what happens. So if I plug in, what would be something easy to plug in? Well, between pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6 is pi over 2. If I plug in pi over 2, do I get a true or a false statement? So sine of pi over 2, okay, so let's see, 2 sine of pi over 2 minus 1 is going to be, sine of pi over 2 is 1. So that's 2 minus 1 is 1. This equals 1. Is that less than 0? No, that is a false statement. So this is false. I'm going to put an F for false. So I want this thing, or maybe what I could do is I could also say that, that this, when I plug in pi over 2, I'm getting a positive value. And so this is positive, but because I want less than 0, I want the negatives are going to be my correct answer. Anyway, different way. I haven't taught this before. Did I say that yet? And so because we know that it's going to, like, it's a trig function that's doing, following that particular pattern, we should go, true, false, or whatever. But let's see. If I plug in pi, and I say 2 sine of pi minus 1, sine of pi is 0. So this is negative 1, and this equals negative 1, which is less than 0. So this section here, this interval is true. It's negative. I don't know. Okay. So my guess, my assumption is that we're going to go from 0 to, given an inequality that describes the values of x, which for which that is true. So it would be 0 is, at 0, what happens? We are, sine of 0 is 0 minus 1 is negative 1. That's less than, so we could equal that. So 0 is less than or equal to x, which is less than pi over 6. Notice I have to use a less than, and then we could say 5 pi over 6 is less than x, because if I plug in 5 pi over 6, I get 5 pi over 6 is 1/2, it's 2 times, that gives me 0. 0 is not less than 0, which would be less than or equal to 2 pi. Okay, so that's one way to think through that. Another option, let's graph this. So we know how to graph this by hand. What's happening here is it's my sine curve, which normally goes dun, 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 okay? But I stretched it out by a factor of 2, and then I shifted it down 1. So we're now at 1. We're at, my range is going to go, it would have been, the 2 makes my range go from negative 2 to 2, but the minus 1 makes my range go from, my range is going to go from negative 3 to positive 1. So we're at negative 1, we're at positive 1, we're at negative 1, we're at negative 3, we're back here. Okay, so we're doing something like this. And so where did we equal 0? We equaled 0, well, we solved that earlier. So this is 1 pi over 6, and this is 5 pi over 6. And so notice my curve between 0 and 2 pi is below the x-axis between 0 and pi over 6, and then 5 pi over 6 and 2 pi. So that's another way to confirm. I mean, I can't jump straight to this without first having solved the problem way back to a previous video. But once I do, you can kind of use that graph to think through how we're going to write it. I probably, to be honest with you, would have changed. We probably should have said use interval notation. So interval notation, oh, nope, would be a hard bracket at 0, and then pi over 6 with a soft bracket union, a soft bracket with 5 pi over 6, and then a hard bracket with 2 pi. So I kind of like that answer better, but okay, whatever. Yeah, and you can see this is definitely less than 0. Super, that was fun. Let's try the next one. Between negative pi and pi for 2 cosine x plus 1 is less than 0. Did we already solve that problem? I don't think we did. Okay, 2 cosine x, let's get some more paper. So 2 cosine x plus 1, let's set it equal to 0 to see where that happens. That means cosine of x equals negative 1/2. Cosine is the x value, negative 1/2 we're here and here. So this is 2 pi over 3, and this is 4 pi over 3. Hopefully you know that in your head by this point. Okay, so then we want to know, oh, actually between negative pi, between negative pi, so let's not call it this, let's go here this way. So this is negative 2 pi over 3, and then going in the positive direction, that's 2 pi over 3. So our answers in this interval where they equal would be that. So now, let's see. I don't know which way I like to do this better yet, so we're getting the hang of this. We can be equal to negative pi, we can be equal to positive pi, and then we have a negative, but we don't want to be equal in our final equation. So I'm putting a dotted line here at negative 2 pi over 3, and a dotted line at 2 pi over 3. Okay, so let's plug in 0 and see if we get a true or false statement. 0, cosine of 0 is equal to 1 times 2 is 2 plus 1, that's 3. So 3 is bigger than 0, so this is a true statement. So, or now in this case, I just want to know when I'm positive. What would be something in here between, well, negative pi over 2? Cosine 2 times cosine of negative pi over 2 plus 1. Cosine of negative pi over 2, the x value is 0. So that's 0 times 2 is 0. So 1 is, so it's 0 plus 1. So what am I saying? That's positive, but didn't I want positive? Oh, you guys, this is fun. Okay, what am I missing? I picked pi. Oh, okay, did y'all catch my mistake? Because now I did. So I was saying between these two values is positive pi, right? Between negative 2 pi over 3, and that's wrong. No, I picked 0. I said 2 times cosine of 0 plus 1. Cosine of 0 is 1 times 2 is 2 plus 1. Okay, I don't love this way of doing it. Let's go. You get to watch me stumble. Did I do something else? 2 cosine plus 1. So instead of 1, 2, 3, we're going to be up as high as 3, and then we're going to go. We have a normal amplitude. We're going to go to 1. We're going to go to negative 1. We're going to come back here. We're going to come back here. So this is, but we want to think about, okay, so we want to consider, oh, that's a funny looking graph. We want to consider that part of my curve from negative pi to positive pi. Okay, so where did it equal 0? This was negative 2 pi over 3, and this is positive 2 pi over 3. Do I need to work that again and make sure I'm right? I don't think I do. Right? Negative 1/2, cosine equals negative 1/2 at the, yeah, that's fine. I'm fine there. Okay, so where is it greater than 0? It's greater. Oh, I think I was plugging in the wrong thing to double check my little sine graph. It's gonna be greater than 0, which was ultimately my question. Between 2 pi over 3 and negative 2 pi over 3 and positive 2 pi over 3. So the answer all comes down to negative 2 pi. Did anybody find my mistake and why I got messed up? I think maybe what I did is I was looking for something between negative pi and negative 2 pi over 3. Negative pi and negative 2 pi over 3. I should have used negative 5 pi over 6. Let's see. 2 times cosine of negative, or let's do, 5 pi over 6 plus 1. What does this equal? 2 times cosine of negative 5 pi over 6. That's a negative root 3 over 2 plus 1. So that's a negative root 3 plus 1. Ah, this is negative. Okay, you guys, here was my problem. I picked the wrong thing. Oh. Okay, this was my mistake. I'm finally catching it. I picked this point, but I wanted something between negative pi, which was here, and negative 2 pi over 3, which was here. But I picked something here that was not between those. So that's my problem. So I was picking something in this interval, and I got a positive, and then I picked another thing in that interval. Well, that's no good. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, I'm just to keep me humble, right? So the final answer was this in interval notation, or given inequality, we would say negative 2 pi over 3 is less than x is less than 2 pi over 3. That was fun. Okay, there's more, so come back for the next video.